Hi, people. So usually when I do reviews, they're reviews of films. So this one's a little bit different. This is a review of a sitcom, Big Bang Theory. The Big Bang Theory ran from 2007 to 2019, and I would say it was a pretty successful show. It notched up, I believe, over 300 episodes. I just want to give a very brief overview of what I thought of the show. I've just watched the last episode. It was a little emotional. It's funny you get attached to characters in a strange way. Um, it's a strange phenomenon. I think a successful show has the ability to do that. But it was a very good finale. People who've seen the show will know what I'm talking about. Those who haven't, I won't say too much if you do think about watching it. I got onto it because my sister-in-law very kindly put me on her Netflix account, and basically, I'd been a long-standing fan of Friends. I still am, and I love Friends, but I want to watch something a little bit more up to date. Friends ended now in the mid 2000s, but going back well over a decade. So I wanted to watch something a little bit more contemporary, a little bit more up to date, just to just to get into it, just to sort of yeah, I had something else to watch. And I thought, well, this could be quite quirky. I'll give it a chance. I watched the first episode and I thought this is quite intriguing. Watched the second episode, then it went from there. Now maybe it's because I was binge watching it. This is from about 2021 to now. Um, Around series four, so I felt it got a little bit repetitive, and a little bit like, well, the episodes sort of run into one another. It's not that different. Like each episode wasn't that different. But like I say, that could just be because I was binge watching like three, four, even five episodes a day. Um, thing with Big Bang Theory is it's very easy to binge watch because the episodes are only 21 minutes. I think Friends were more like 25 minutes, 27 minutes. So it's easy to binge watch. Um, the opening tune, incidentally, is by the Bare Naked Ladies, and it's you wouldn't need to have epilepsy to look at it because it comes very fast. Maybe they should have a disclaimer about that actually, but it's the same group that performs the song "I'll Be There for You" of Friends, and indeed the apartments are quite similar. Now the show's set in Pasadena, Los Angeles County, and basically it's about a group of young scientists and their lives and their quirks. And it focuses, this is where it's somewhat different from Friends. It focuses more on the male leads in the first sort of, I would say, two to three series, which are best friends Sheldon and Hard, Raj, short for Rajesh, and excuse me, Sheldon Leonard, Hard and Rajesh. And all four guys are kind of socially awkward. There's a whole debate over what's the line between nerds and geeks, but basically these guys sort of cross into both realms, arguably. They're in the comic books, they're all super intelligent. They're physicists, astrophysicists, very, very smart guys, but they're all socially awkward. Now, from the beginning, the character Penny appears, and she's kind of an outsider because she's kind of normal. um, she's a waitress, she's a struggling actress, and she is not the sort of person who would naturally fit that sort of social circle. She's more like the popular girl in high schools. And I think that's a big part of the humor from early on, the fact that this is a very unlikely friendship. Um, then gradually, two other female leads, Amy Farrah Fowler and Bernadette, appear. Now, the actress who plays Amy Farrah Fowler, Mayim Bialik, has actually got a PhD in real life, and she, I understand, was something of a consultant in some of the episodes. One good thing about the Big Bang Theory is for anyone who is into physics and knows the stuff, the show is quite honourable to its research. It gets things quite accurate. I think that's important if you're going to make a show centered around scientists. It's important that you get the details right, and I think for the most part, the Big Bang Theory did. I can't think of any controversy whereby real world physicists called it out. There were a number of celebrity cameos. Stephen Hawking made a few appearances, Bill Gates, and there were others who were actual Nobel laureates who made cameo appearances. William Shatner of Star Trek fame. Like I say, I thought there was times it was a little repetitive. It's also been accused of copying Friends. Yes and no. There are some episodes that are unquestionably quite similar. On the other hand, they are different shows, different characters, and there are some differences as well. The backgrounds of the characters are different. I suppose you could argue the whole relationship between Leonard and Penny, the constant up down, is a bit like Ross and Rachel. They're sort of the Ross and Rachel of the show. But there are things that are different about Big Bang Theory. I would say that not all characters are sort of equal in terms of billing. I would say Sheldon Cooper is unquestionably the character who cements them all together. He is the quirkiest. He's the most difficult. He's the most intelligent. He is. I mean, basically, without Sheldon Cooper, there'd be no Big Bang Theory. And it's not that the other characters aren't memorable, but Sheldon Cooper really is the breakout character, and I'm not sure if you could say the same for like any particular character on Friends being stand alone in the same way. Um, Indeed, the final episode is Sheldon and Amy finally getting a Nobel Prize in physics, and there's a whole character arc around that in that final episode. I won't give it away, but I thought it was a very good finale. Um, what else can I say about the show? One thing I think it was a bit of a flaw was some of the character development I wasn't fussed on. For example, the character Bernadette, and I know that other people felt this from looking at comments. Unfortunately, it wasn't a great character development because she started off as kind of sweet, quirky girl, and she ended up being quite controlling and shackling to her husband, um, to the point of being abusive. Now, Melissa Rauch who plays the character. I don't blame her. There's nothing wrong with her acting, but I'm not sure that was the best character development because she just got controlling and quite, at times, quite unpleasant. And they tried to turn it into a joke, but I think it fell a little bit flat because people thought this, when's this going to circle back around again? When are we going to see the sweet side again? And perhaps the writers were looking at it, well, she's a bit controlling, but it's just her care, but that didn't come through. Um, Likewise, there was times that Penny, although again she's mostly a likable character, there's times her mean girl side came through. In one episode, I forget which it was, we find out she was a bully in high school. Now, in theory, what should happen is she should develop as a much better character, but at the very end, she still has a drinking problem, and there's still something of a mean girl aspect there. I remember there was an episode where she was pushing around some of her co-workers, and I don't like to say that. I like the positive side of Penny as a character, but if you contrast it to that some of the male characters, for example, Hard started off as a very sleazy, womanizing character who's a bit creepy. Basically, he was a pervert. But he grew up and he snapped out of that pretty early on. I think there was one episode where Penny basically stood up to him and said, "You can't behave this way around women." So he developed a long way. In fact, I would argue Hard possibly developed more than any other character. Rajesh, again, he's a very likable character. You can tell he's loyal to his friends. He's good natured. When he's drunk, he gets a little bit more like Hard, a bit more cocky, a bit more of a womanizer. But when he's not drinking, he's actually a pretty likable character. So I felt a little bit sorry for Raj that even in the end, he didn't quite have his love. I mean, I have the same joke where he's with Sarah Michelle Gellar. He meets her on the plane and she's with him in Stockholm, but he's the one character, he's the one male character who doesn't end up with a girlfriend. And that's a pity because he's one of the most likable characters. Another flaw in Big Bang Theory is some of the supporting characters, particularly Stuart. I don't like the way they handled that because one got the impression that Stuart was always a butt of jokes because of his slightly awkward mannerisms. And he wasn't a scientist, but he ran the comic book store. But there was times, particularly up to about halfway, when you just felt the group were kind of excluding Stuart, and I felt sorry for the guy. I felt, well, He has the same interests apart from having the scientific background. Why do they keep excluding him? And they almost used him at times. So I didn't really like the handling of the character Stuart, the way they done that. So it's almost like the script writers tried to justify the treatment by making him a bit of an awkward character and a bit difficult later on and a bit selfish at times. But that's very different from the early Stuart. Um, but there's those negative sides. I don't think it's like 50-50. I think there was much more about the show that was good than negative. Um, what else can I say? It For a show that was, made from the 2000s to the 2010s, it was surprisingly on woke. Now, what I mean by that was, yes, there were some lines that certainly are generational. They certainly fit into the sort of narrative we hear nowadays, particularly around race and issues like that, feminism and so on. But I was pleasantly surprised by the fact the show wasn't preachy. I mean, as an example, there's sometimes jokes at the expense of Raj and his Indian culture, but he then turns it around and throws jokes at American culture, so it's evenly applied. And it's actually not politically correct, which is surprising. Some people who might think, oh, well, it's a contemporary show, it's going to be very woke, it's going to be very lefty. Not really. Um, there's elements there that are consistently applied. And I think the humor is a little bit risky at times. But again, it's the sort of humor I like. It's risky without being excessively cruel. Um, so in that sense, it's along a similar vein to Friends, I would say. It isn't totally tame. At the same time, it's not toilet humor. It's just good humor. It's just edgy, balanced, healthy humor. Um, and I think in that sense, it's well written. What else can I say? Other supporting characters, the two mothers. Well, three mothers actually. Hard's mother, you never see her, but she's this really whiny, sort of controlling woman, and she's a major character, even though we never see her. Um, Leonard's mother is a psychologist, and she comes across as a bit of a nightmare, a bit like Sheldon, very, very oblivious to people's feelings. But there's a reconciliation between her and her son in the end. And again, I don't want to give too much away, but I thought that was very well done. Sheldon's mother, meanwhile, Sheldon's from Texas. She's, pure Bible Belt product, very evangelical Christian, and there's a lot of humor in that. So I thought, I'm not sure who the actresses were, but they were very good at those roles. All in all, I would say The Big Bang Theory is a very watchable show. I'd give it a strong 7 out of 10. I wouldn't give it higher because of the flaws that I mentioned, and I may well look back on it and think, well, actually, look at it in a different angle. But I would say it's a very watchable show. If you have Netflix, check it out. If you don't have Netflix, sometimes the show repeats on terrestrial TV. There's clips on YouTube. I would say it's a pretty watchable show. I enjoyed it, and I'll miss it. No doubt I'll go back to the some of those episodes. Um, but yeah, Sheldon, Leonard, Hard, Raj, Amy, Bernadette, and Penny. Goodbye. Thank you for entertaining me over the last year. It was a good show. There's probably a lot of other things I haven't said, but I'll leave it there. So check out The Big Bang Theory if you haven't already done so.